she was a Phoenician woman born in Syria. This woman was identified as a stranger. She was not a part of the Jewish community. She is Greek. She is a Gentile. Her economic status is not mentioned. Her marital status is not mentioned. The only information that we are given is that she is a mother of a demon-possessed child and a foreigner. Now, we get to the part of the story where Jesus is tired. Jesus has finally found a place to rest his head. And here she comes, asking for something. We all know how that is, right? Yeah. Have you ever had a hard day at work? And you look at the clock, and it's 4:45. And you know it's about to be on. You're about to be out of there. And you start cleaning up your desk, start making it neat for the next day. Right? You look at the clock again, and it's 10 minutes to 5. So you start taking off your dress shoes and start putting on slacks and your sneakers because you're ready to go, right? And you say, okay, I have time for one more bathroom run. That'll kill some time. And as you stand up to go to the bathroom, the phone rings. You look down at the caller ID and you see it's your voice. Your eyes quickly dart around the office to see if she can see you or if he can see you. Would it be safe to just sneak out of the office? And as your eyes are darting around, your eyes meet up with your boss. Just come in, just for a minute. It will only take a minute. And as you enter the room, they hand you a stack and said, we have a deadline to meet. Could you stay just a little longer? You know how that is, right? Yeah. Or, how about this one? You have worked all day long. You have planned your night. You are going to pick up the children. It's your turn to pick them up from after school. You know their homework should be done since they spent 2 hours at after school. You have decided that you will eat the leftovers from the night before. You will catch up with your children over dinner and get them ready for bed. Then settle into a nice, hot bubble bath to relax and breathe. But something happens. The children's homework was not completed in after school. All they did in after school was play. They are not ready to go to bed. Your spouse wants to vent about the job. And all you hear for the rest of the night is mommy, 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 mommy. When all you want to do is rest. Well, I can imagine that was the kind of day Jesus was having. After all, Jesus had a long journey. If you read the Gospel of Mark, Jesus was healing people all over the place. He was preaching the gospel. He was teaching everywhere he went. And this is a time when he had some downtime. And he was ready to just kick up his feet and relax. And again, here she comes. She comes falling on her knees and asking him for some help. Not just any kind of help, but help that requires something from him. Do you know that when you heal people, it's draining? Remember the woman who touched his garment? It drained him of his power. He felt it, and he turned around and said, who touched my garment? So Jesus is not too happy with this request. And so Jesus says to the woman, let me say, the children be fed first, for it is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs. Now, some of you are smiling. And I know for sure if Jesus would have said that to you, you would not be smiling. It wouldn't be a giggle. It would probably be a frown. Or you would probably turn around and ask Jesus, just who are you talking to? Am I right? It wouldn't have been that simple. Now, there are those who do not want to admit that these words are harsh. There are school of thoughts that say that Jesus was only testing her. That's why he said it, because he wanted to see if she had faith. There's another school of thought that says that Jesus was insulting her. Because she was a Gentile, it was customary for the Jews to call Gentiles dogs or little puppies. And because Jesus was a Jew, and because Jesus is fully human and fully divine, do you agree? Yes. Because Jesus has shown that he can be human, he cried, he wept when they didn't believe him that he can raise Lazarus from the dead. He went to the Garden of Gethsemane and he was fearful. He sweated drops of blood because he was human. And because he was human, my God is fully human and fully divine, I can submit to the ladder of the scholars, the school of thought, that in this moment, Jesus was in his human state. He was born a Jew. He was raised in the Jewish community. And here is a foreign woman coming to him out of order because women was not supposed to be protectors of the household. They were not supposed to be the carers of the household. That was a man's job. If you notice, in a previous chapter, Jairus went to Jesus and asked Jesus for the same request, to heal his child. And what did Jesus do? Immediately, Jesus said, now let's go. There was no hesitation. There was no smart remark. There was no degradation. He said, let's go. And if we just think it's because she's a woman, not true. Remember, she was touched. He was touched by a woman. And she was healed. He did not reprimand her. But this is a foreign woman, a Gentile woman. And Jesus at that point believed that his goal was to bring the Jews back to God. And the Gentiles were not included just yet. It was not their time. But this bold, this brazen woman stood in front of him, knelt in front of him, and said, Lord, I'm going to stop there. I'm not going to go on. I'm going to stop right there just for 1 minute. Because he walked with the disciples, 12 men. He had plenty of male followers, but not one of them recognized him as Lord immediately. But she recognized him. She heard his preaching. She heard his teaching. She saw what he could do. And immediately she called him Lord. That's the woman for you. We're observant. We know how to use what we got to get what we want. And what does Jesus say? She flipped Jesus' statement back on Jesus. Did you notice? You following me? I hope I didn't lose any of you. All right. She answered, Lord, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. Ha. The crumbs was good enough for her. The crumbs was good enough for her. I remember when I was a child, my mother was an excellent baker. She would bake bread buns for Easter. She would do all of this baking. And we had this huge, about this size, huge bread pan. And she would fill it up. And she would, at the bottom, she would put a cloth. So, after we're done eating all the bread, we don't have any more, she would take the cloth, pull it together, all the crumbs would be on the cloth. She would make herself a cup of tea, get a plate, put the crumbs on the plate, squeeze them together, and make her meal, her breakfast. The crumbs are enough for us. Now, I know that recently we were in a recession. Remember? We had people jumping out of windows, crying, shooting themselves. Have you noticed that many of them wasn't our color? I tell you why. They were not our color because we know all about eating the crumbs. In slavery times, they used to toss us the crumbs. That's how we got pig feet, chicken foot soup, fish soup, ham hocks, chicken back, chitlins. They used to give us everything that they didn't want. And we used to take them crumbs and we used to make a meal for our entire household. We know all about getting those crumbs and making a meal from them crumbs. Even as women, preachers, we were tossed the crumbs. And to this day, we're still tossed the crumbs. They'll stick us in the worst churches. Those that are falling apart. Those that are ready to close, that's where they'll stick us. But we know what to do with the crumbs. With those crumbs, we will build up that church from the bottom up. What they believe, they're giving us a crumb. But God has something so much greater. If God doesn't do one more thing for me, I have enough crumbs for my spirit to be sustained. Women, we always get the crumbs. We don't get the credit we deserve. When we're married and our children do well, the men did it. If something goes wrong, the women did it. It's in the biblical text as well. Look at Adam and Eve. Who did God deliver the message to? So he should have been smart enough not to eat from the fruit. And at the end, My mother was a wise woman. I see y'all men shaking your head because you know it's the truth. I'm sorry I'm telling on y'all. Women can get men to do just about anything. Just about anything, especially when they're boys. Where the boys at? When you're young and you're chasing, we can get y'all to do just about anything. Just about anything. But I don't want to be up here in front of you too long. But I want to encourage the women that when someone gives you something you don't want, take it. Take it. And give it to the Lord. And God will increase it. God will make you something out of nothing. I remember we used to eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches with no lights on in my household. But we lived somewhere. We had somewhere to stay. We can go back to, I'm going to go back just for a minute about the women preaching. How many of you have ever heard of Jarena Lee? Yes. She was A&E. She was talking about Smith. I'm talking about Lee. She was A&E. And they tossed her bone. She could preach. She was known all over to preach better than the men. And they would not give her the title of preacher. So they tossed her bone. They said, you're an exhorter. An exhorter. You're not a preacher. You're an exhorter. So one day, a male was preaching. And something happened. His tongue got tied for some reason. And Jarena Lee snatched that crumb. She got up on the pulpit and she preached that word. And from that point on, everyone was calling her a preacher. And she was ordained, the first woman to be ordained as a preacher. But that's nothing that we don't experience now. It's only recent that women have been given the title or been ordained, even here in the United Methodist Church. The first year was 1968. Some of us were not even born yet. So that is recent history. 1968. That we were allowed to be ordained in the United Methodist Church. But brothers and sisters, that didn't mean anything. Because if I'm not ordained by man, I'm ordained by God. So you can, either which way you can keep that crumb. Because God has given me a meal. This meal consists of a dash of joy, a sprinkle of peace, a spoonful of self-control, a cup of love, a whole heap of crumbs of trust, a mustard seed of faith. And when I mix all of that up, brothers and sisters, the crumbs were good enough for me. And with those crumbs, I now have a meal. I have a meal to share with you. I have a meal to share with you. I have a meal to share with you. And brothers and sisters, what I give to you won't be nothing but a crumb. But that's your crumb. And you got to make that crumb work. The crumb has to be good enough for you. We have to give God praise today. We are celebrating women, a species that is forgotten a lot of times.
She's leaving.